Haircut, what have we got here? Aspire Zoom. Aspire Zoom 2.
At lunch. So
So,
We'll get started here in just a couple minutes. I'm just admitting people. Okay, we'll give it another minute or two. It seems like maybe slowing down. Hey, Krista, I'm going to make you a co-host just in case anyone else joins. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us for the College Share session, the program share. I have things planned for like discussing SSS. So in the chat, I said that we're going to talk through a number of topics like budgets, grant aid, student engagement, peer mentoring, recruiting, and then wrapping up with online programming. I'd like, if you wouldn't mind, to turn on video so we can have an engaging conversation with each other. There's 24 people in here right now, so I think it might be best if we used like the hand raise platform. So on Zoom under reactions, there's raise hand. So I have some questions that I'll be putting in the chat kind of as we go. And then it'll just be a conversation about all of these different topics. So let's start out with probably the most fun topic that there is about programs, and that's going to be budgets, right? So I'm sure that this is maybe more relevant for some of the directors in the room, but one of the questions that Krista and I came up with is, what are some creative examples that your program has found to utilize the budget? So what have you been doing over the last year? You've probably had some extra funds available because of COVID and maybe needing to do some things different. What are some things that you've done to maximize the budget? And don't everyone all speak at once.
hi everybody, this is Ashley Kirshner from Black Hills State University. We have an SSS program. And we had some leftover funds, and due to the the CARES Act, we were able to purchase essential items cards for our students. That we are still trying to finalize, but I just got approval from Walmart this morning to get those through. So that's one of the ways we are hoping to still help our students yet this spring in providing them some funds to be able to get some of their essential items.
Very neat. And Kat in the chat actually put, not only how have I managed the budget right now, but like, what are you going to do in the next fiscal year, right? So can you expand on maybe what you've done, Kat?
Well, what I'm planning on doing is that one of the, forgive me, CPPs, I think, or PCs, I can't remember yeah, there's extra things we had to write for, right? It says under there for internships. And what we're going to do is get a subscription to an internship program here that works with companies and that kind of thing, specifically in North Dakota and other surrounding areas. For Minnesota, I think is another area that they work for. And so what we're going to do is get a subscription for our students so they can go and tap into those internships. So they have those opportunities to get an internship with their program.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's really important to find a work experience right when you're in college, especially work experience that is relevant to their field. And if you can find a way to use your budget to support the students and helping them find those opportunities, I think that will go a long way as well. For the people who maybe arrived a little bit after we started, I put it in the chat again, just kind of the intro message. If you wouldn't mind turning on videos, so that way we can all see each other and kind of have a fulfilling conversation. I didn't introduce myself, that's my apologies, but my name is Mark Counterman and I'm the STEM education specialist with TRIO SSS at North Dakota State University. And I've been in that position for almost 2 years now. I suppose if no one has anything else to add to budget in this first scenario, we can move on to the second one, which is going to be about grant aid. So it kind of ties in a little bit with budget, but how does your program's grant aid work? Do you have a grant aid program? Are you maybe looking to shift funds to offer grant aid? I know there's something that you can do with that. And how does it look like for your students?
Ashley, Black Hills State University here again. We do have grant aid. We have $8,000 of the grant aid that we provide to students. We have a extra year, and so we are going to probably use any remaining funds that we have, or trying to. Actually, I don't know if we can do that. Never mind. I'm sorry, I'm speaking out aloud here, or thinking out loud. But we do have a grant aid that we provide for students, $8,000 worth of grant aid.
Sure. So Ashley, kind of following up with that, do you have your students apply for grant aid? Do you uniformly give it to all students that are eligible within their first 2 years and then maybe have some extra left over? Or how does that work at Black Hills State?
Since there's only $8,000 worth, we kind of use it as more of a retention effort. So trying to help students who maybe are considering stopping out, or who we know have, high financial need, helping them in that way to get some additional funds, or to stick around for an additional semester with a little bit of help with that finance piece.
Sure. Are there any other SSS programs in here that offer grant aid?
I'm Brenda. I'm from the University of Mary in Bismarck. And yes, we have 35,000 marked for a supplemental grant for those who are Pell eligible. And then also the school, what they do on their match. Are you guys having trouble hearing me? That happens on my computer sometimes.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, hold on. I'll put on my speakerphone. I apologize.
That better?
That is much better, yes.
Okay, I apologize. Yes, our grant allows for $35,000 during the year for supplemental grant aid. So we kind of divide it between the fall semester and the spring semester. And then they're Pell eligible. They also have to write an essay why they need this funding, what TRIO, does for them. And then the school, they actually match quite a bit more than they are really bound to. But we are then able to give book and merit grants. So any student after a semester, they receive a $50 book grant if they have a 2.0 or greater. And if it's 3.0 or greater, it's anywhere from 200, depending on how many apply, qualify, up to $500. And so it's a lot of incentive to stay in TRIO, and that goes until they, their last semester. And so it really provides that incentive. We can say, well, you need to come to your meetings here if you want to receive this grant aid. And so it's really, I think it's really made our program robust by offering that.
Sure. Yeah. And we've had something
Yeah,
pretty
and-
similar at NDSU. We have sorry, Lacey. We have our students apply for it and they write an essay, or actually we did a recorded video that kind of worked out. And we serve 350 students, and we have a pretty robust match program with our university as well. So we were able to help, I think, almost 50 first or second year students this year by providing substantial awards for the spring semester.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just going to add that at NSU SSS, we have a similar grant aid. What is not similar is the awesome match from the university, which is kind of a bummer for us, but we do have a substantial proportion of our budget dedicated to grant aid. And then just to echo what Brenda said, is that it really allowed us to have a robust program, a lot of incentive to participate. So I know in a lot of these program shares, we talk about like, how do you get students to show up for your workshops? How do you get students to take part in these activities that you invest so much time and energy into? And we have really seen grant aid be a tool for that. So we have, I want to say it's just under $50,000 of our annual budget dedicated to grant aid. And I was hoping maybe to hear from Krista. Sorry to put you on the spot, but we did something really cool with grant aid in the spring semester. And we always offer academic workshops, and our students, in order to receive grant aid, have to participate in at least 3 academic workshops, go to one of our social events, and then complete an online financial literacy course. But something that we offer this spring was a TRIO Emerging Leaders program. So I thought that is something cool and different. And then maybe, Krista, do you just want to explain that briefly?
Yeah, thanks, Lacey. I hope nobody gets sick of listening to me throughout the day today. I was going to be quiet in this session. But no, we were trying to find ways to get our students to engage. And so at Northern, we are at a mask level 3, meaning students can participate as long as they wear masks throughout the campus. And so we thought that was going to be really hard to engage and kind of get people to come to campus to present on different academic workshops. So we did partner with Paradigm Shift to present in a virtual platform. So you guys got to see Paradigm Shift. And so we have a smart classroom so we could log in where the students could see the presenters, and the presenters could see kind of the group of students spaced out in a space to do hands-on activities, even though it was virtual, which was really kind of cool. And we did a 3-part series this year that kind of focused on leading with their strengths, motivation, and execution. And we had upwards of 25 students attend at sessions. And so we thought that was a huge success, but it gave just students another opportunity to interact with our program and to get that information for sure. So I think, maybe kind of ties a little bit into that budget topic 1, Mark, where we were like, what could we do creatively to use our funds to give back to our students, but also to promote that engagement. And we did that with giving more opportunities to attend these workshops for our students who received grant aid in that spring semester. Other things we've done too is we've tried to partner with other things on campus too, like our job fair. We allowed our students to do something that was, promoting engagement on campus campus, but also useful for them in a way that made sense for maybe their academic journey throughout. So we tried to think creatively too, but we like to promote those things within our program, and it kind of builds our partnership too across a campus as well. So I think we continually evolve like every semester, Lacey, as we talk about some of the things that we do well or get ideas to try something new. And I think that's something that we would probably encourage is the things that we continue to try and see that the feedback we get from students, it's definitely worth it for us to continue to evolve our program and offer different opportunities to them as well.
Lacey and Krista, can I ask a follow-up question? I don't have grant aid and may have a little bit of rollover funding from this to next fiscal. And I was looking at grant aid in the previous year, and I remember talking to Jelly, and she's like, you have to offer it to them, but there's no strings attached. So, and I was like, okay, no strings attached. I get it. Okay, so you give it to them, there's no strings attached to it. So let me make sure that you offer it to them if they meet these requirements first, right? Get the money after they do. Help me out, please. That's what I thought. Thank you.
It's before, yeah. So
Okay.
they're required, right?
Okay.
So they fill out an application, much like Brenda and Mark stated there. And then we say, well, we need you to be an active participant. So you have to be an SSS student
Yes.
in order to receive grant aid. And then that's our definition of an active TRIO SSS student is 3 workshops, what is it, 2 financial, I might have got it that wrong. Anyway, financial literacy, and then a social event as well. So, I mean, the money's theirs to begin with, but then we say you have to stay active.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Thank you.
Yeah, and kind of along those lines for NDSU, because we're offering it in the spring and potentially summer if we had leftover funds, we look for students who are active participants in the fall semester. So like a student can't join necessarily unless there's some weird circumstances in like January and then apply for grant aid because they haven't necessarily demonstrated that they're like bought into the program. So one of the things that we look for is the students join in the fall. They are completing their meetings with their advisor. They're doing the financial literacy. They're doing all that. They're participating, and then we kind of reward them for being active participants by awarding them grant aid. For for programs like Lake Region, not having the necessarily same grant aid, or even Joan with UND, what kind of ways have you found to support students that maybe need the financial support?
Here at Lake Region State College, we're very fortunate that we have the foundation office has put money aside for the TRIO program. So we have scholarships for our TRIO students here. So we provide like $300 to $500 per semester for our active TRIO students here.
At UND, we were fortunate to be the beneficiary of an alumni scholarship that came directed to our program. And we're able to, currently we award 9 students $5,000 a year through that. And it's been up to more. And, I would like to spread it out to more students, but that is the stipulation of that scholarship.
Sure, and I know that sometimes scholarships can be so specific. From my time working at admission, you maybe are from a certain program or you're from a certain even county. I know there's some scholarships at the North Dakota schools that you have to be from a certain county. And it's interesting to see that like you can award that much money to those students, or Kat, you can give $300 to $500 or whatever to students, and the stipulations are different, right? So for grant aid, it needs to be a student in their first 2 years. They need to be Pell eligible. And if they're outside of their first 2 years, you need to make sure that it's kind of been exhausted, right? That all of those students' needs are met, or that there's extenuating circumstances. So it seems like having those other scholarships maybe gives you a little bit more flexibility in deciding who can get it, right? Are there any?
have lost the name of the one option that students do have that our students are included in. But we've had a laptop program that our students were eligible, and that's COVID money, to receive a free laptop. And, you know, they had to maintain they had to be full-time, maintain the GPA, stay in school from first semester through second semester. And then there is another grant program that UND has opened up, and they're always looking for our students for eligibility. So I think that relationship in working with admissions and financial aid to make sure that our students know what other aid is available to them, and it was a simple process for them to apply for that funding.
Absolutely. Key partnerships across campus are at the heart of having a strong program, right? And I think that's one of the questions that I have later on when it comes to like recruiting and online programming. But I'm going to pivot a little bit back based on what Krista was talking about with engaging students and with that leadership program they have at Northern. So with student engagement, how have you been engaging students through the pandemic? Everyone last March had to kind of flip things over, right? And you weren't able to offer in-person services, and North Dakota and South Dakota kind of rebelled, right? They didn't have mask mandates and the schools were back in person. But how were you engaging with students online, and how much of it really changed? Did any of it change based on COVID?
My name's Mary Montoya, and I am at the University of Marion-Bismarck, and I am a new TRIO advisor. I just started it this fall, but I was in the program, so I can kind of, based on my experience now, and we were fortunate enough that we have been on campus since the start of the semester. And so we have still been able to hold all of our classes, all of our workshops have been in person, but quite a few of our students have either not felt comfortable coming into campus or have chosen to do modality online. And text message, in my opinion, and my fellow advisors can chime in if they think differently, text messages have been our best friends, because we can't get our students to respond to emails, as I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way. And so we text them. We also started a Canvas page for our students. That's what our all the professors use to contact their students. So we do that, and we put out weekly announcements just with events and tuitions due and ad drop and all that stuff. And it seems like, and then we do also silly, funny videos on there just to get the students' attention and show them that we are here. And we have had a lot of good reactions to that.
Can you talk a little bit more about the text messaging and how you do that, and what kind of permissions that you had to go through? And maybe that's a little bit more than, that you know about or care to share, but I'm interested in that.
We use it's through Student Access. That's the text messages we use. I'm going to turn it to Brenda, because Brenda will know the answer more than I will.
Yes, we do use the texting feature that is offered on Student Access. We use that a lot. And then to reiterate what Mary was saying on the Canvas, that's our learning management program. So we received permission to have our own, it looks like a TRIO course, but any TRIO student, anybody who is a TRIO student actually has access to this page. So it comes up with all their other classes. And that way, like she said, we put some really embarrassing videos of ourselves. I have no humility left anymore, but it is fun for the students. And that way we can stay engaged, and we know that they see the activities coming up, because they're more apt to go onto their Canvas pages for their classes, and it always pops up as a new announcement or something in the TRIO page. So any learning management system, if you can get permission from your school to have a course in there, I would say it's very helpful to stay engaged.
So Brenda, going off of that, is it a one-way engagement, like you providing the information to the students, or do you see the students interacting or posting things as well?
Particularly last spring, that's when we decided to do it, is when all of a sudden we were told everybody has to go home in March, like everyone. And so we had to finish up online. And that's when we started the page. And it's very interactive. So just as students can have discussion boards, you know, with all their other courses, they can with this too. And we found that last spring, there was a lot of discussion on the board, students just saying, hey, I'm really struggling, or, you know, this is really helpful. And they'd ask questions through there that were helpful for not just them, but it was a way to not feel alone type of thing. We don't have as much engagement now, but we know that they're on it and we know they're listening to it. And, but yeah, they can always reach out on the discussion board, and we can see who's on there and they can see what we're posting all the time.
So I'll respond to Mary as far as texting and appropriateness and so on. When we first meet with a student, we ask them if it's all right if we text them with information. And I haven't had one student say no. So we also text our students, and it's kind of an old school system, but we use Google Voice with texting. So I can send the same message to multiple students at one time. And I know there are other systems out there. I just haven't taken the time to explore that. And we also use a learning management system to get information to students, Blackboard, and it's like Brenda indicated, it's like it's their, like one of their classes.
And I know since we all have to document everything, something very interesting with student access is we can send the mass text to everyone too as well. And then you can click on it and it'll document it for you automatically. So then we do not have to go in. Yeah. And I just figured that out a few months ago because I was getting really irritated having to text every single student privately and then go in and document it, that we can do it and you just click it and you can type in exactly what the message says and then all of it is documented into student access.
Yeah, Mary has become our new IT person.
I'm from Joan's program, and in addition to the group, we've done a lot of individualization because different students, you know, have different needs depending on their work and how comfortable they are with exposure. And also we have some in the medical field that go into the hospitals, and so they're not even supposed to be on campus, but we've provided in-person, face-to-face tutoring with the CDC recommendations. And then we've also, you know, used all of the methods, Zooming and texting, the emails and phone calls and reaching out. And we talked about this recently, but overall, thank you for checking on me has been a theme during the pandemic. And I can't say enough about that. I mean, and then students will also just want to stay in touch. And so, you know, through the different contacts, you know, many students will say, can we set up a Zoom time just to chat? And so I've really enjoyed that as well. And it happens frequently, just to give them socialization. And sometimes there are more students, you know, if we do a presentation. Recently, we did a presentation where we had a group of students, and they all too responded afterwards, just that they really enjoyed talking to everyone and enjoyed being part of the presentation. And so, yeah, so we've just tried to do both group and individual according to their needs.
Lexi, you have your hand up. Do you have something to add?
Nope, that was my
Maybe not.
mistake. Sorry.
Okay, sure. One thing to go back to the texting, that maybe you can reach out to your admission office at your institution, because I can almost guarantee they are doing texting in some capacity. When I worked in admission, we used a platform called Cadence by Mongoose, or Mongoose by Cadence. But I know that we use a TargetX platform now through Salesforce, and they have a text messaging platform as well, and they're able to send personalized messages out. So maybe you can add in through there, but Student Access also has their thing as well. Does anyone else have any thoughts or ideas on engaging students? I think we had a lot of great things that we added here.
Yeah, I got something. I'm with Joan and Cheryl at UND. One thing that I do with my students is like sending them weekly emails, like all together, beyond reaching out individually, and just letting them know. I update our Blackboard, so I let them know like what's coming up, what's going on at UND, things like that, important dates and deadlines. And then I also email that to them almost like every week at the same time, around the same time. So I just think that reoccurring thing helps them, I guess, like understand that we are here for them and that it's okay to reach out. And I always end my emails with like, if you guys have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to help, things like that. I think that really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. I know in Navigate's most recent update, if you use that as a platform, they have a link that you can click to schedule an appointment directly. So I found success with the students that I meet with, and just saying like, hey, you can just click this to schedule an appointment.
We use Calendly, and in our email signatures, we have a little icon that says click to schedule with our logo.
Yeah.
Gavin, can I ask you a question about Calendly?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know if you would know the answer to this. When someone schedules a meeting, does it track it at all? Like, so you know, I met with 7 students, Brenda met with 8 during this month. Is there a way to track it?
I think mine is just connected straight to my email.
Okay.
So it schedules that Calendly appointment into my .und.edu calendar. So
okay.
I guess you could just like look at your calendar and say that you met with them.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and in addition with Calendly, like you get a confirmation email too. And what I found helpful with like my advising appointments is sending that like a filter up, so that when I get a confirmation email from Navigate or from Calendly, it goes to a specific folder. That way everything is in there, so you can look back at that and kind of stay organized. But I'm a big fan of folders. So okay, let's move on to the next topic, which is peer mentoring. And I have a bunch of questions here that kind of boil down to, what does peer mentoring look like at your program if you have one? So does your program offer peer mentoring? What does that look like specifically? How involved are your mentors with the program? How do you pair students with mentors? And what types of communications are your mentors sending to students? And what types of communications are they sending to the staff that they work with?
Well, I'll just jump in real fast on this one too, because our program is probably a little bit different than other schools would do. Our peer mentors, actually our TRIO advisors teach 2 TRIO sections of first year experience, which I guess is kind of an anomaly and where faculty let us do that. So there are just 2 classes and they're just TRIO students. And so then we use the peer mentors to come in, and they go as much as they can go to that classroom and get to know the students that way. But then we use them for more assistive technology. So we have smart pens, we have Read and Write Gold, some of those tools that we find that when we tell them about it, the advisors, they're not as likely to use them. But when there's a peer mentor, one of them who use it, then they do one-on-ones with them so that they learn how to use the technology. So we use them for that. And then of course, just whatever we can find in the office to do. And they come to workshops, they come to the events. And we just find it helps when you've got other students, you know, excited about telling other students, you got to come to this. And then they're there. So they have that face that's familiar, that they can always feel like, oh yeah, I know them. I can ask them this question, etc.
Hi,
Well, oh, go ahead.
I'm Kayla Napoleon at NDSU, and I'm an education specialist. Primarily responsible for programming, but I also coordinate the mentors. And I agree with Brenda, like our peer mentors are also participants, but we strive to select the most engaged participants. Like they have to be aware of not just the programs we offer, but to be able to speak about it from a personal experience, you know, like, yeah, I recommend this workshop, or yeah, totally do that event. So we want our peer mentors to also be engaged, and that also helps establish like the community that we want to build as well. Those peer mentors should be visible. Students should know who they are. And Mark, you threw out a lot of questions. I mean, in terms of involvement, as you know, because I work with Mark, that piece is like a work in progress. We don't want our peer mentors to be annoying, but I do have them send out not weekly contacts, but at least bi-weekly, just saying like, hey, it's your peer mentor just checking in. How's it going this week? Or how was spring break? Or another thing is our peer mentors are also paired by major, and then if not by major, by common coursework taken. So if you know something's going on in your program, or, you know, everyone knows that one professor who's like really hard, they could send out a more personal message like, all right, that big project is due in Psych 101, you know, and you're talking to your fellow majors, right? People in your major, and they can totally relate. So that's something we've been trying to do to just, I guess, increase involvement, because it is like pulling teeth, at least in our program. And gosh, I have one more thought. Oh, training, we do the CRLA. So every other week, like I said, I want them to send out those emails, and then I meet with them weekly. So we try to do a quick recap. I mean, it's just a quick 30 minutes, like how's your week going? What are you hearing from the students? But then also hitting those CRLA topics, whether it's like establishing a good rapport, being an active listener, and knowing it's good that we have students that are in the project, that are in our program, so the students feel like they're in the same boat, right? But I still talk to them about knowing your audience, even though we're all, you know, first generation college students basically, but I do talk to them about just being aware of who you're talking to in that student's circumstances, even though they're from a similar background and may be in a similar circumstances. And talking to them about being a mandatory reporter, or coming to us if you hear something heavy, you know. So we have those things going on. And like I said, if anybody has any other tips or ideas, it has been like pulling teeth, getting those students in to actually want to talk to their peer. That would be like really good to know, at least for me, because I've sort of stepped into this role when we got a new director. So like I just started working with these students for a few months. It's different when you know who they are and you know them from being in a program, but when you're working with them and you're their supervisor and that dynamic changes, it's like, well, what happened to you? You know, like I can't get these students to respond the way I want them to all the time. But other than that, that's how our peer mentor program has been going. I'm sure the pandemic has a lot to do with some of the difficulties we've been having. So we've done a Meet the Mentors video. We, you know, put them out on social media on blast, like just saying, hey, here I am, you know, picture of them with their pets, just making them personable to our other participants. So we've tried that too. I'll stop rambling. I'm from the South, so I just talk, sorry.
Well, we have academic coach, peer mentor, tutors. They wear many hats. Many are students of ours, are scholarship students, and some are not. But they connect regularly with the students. I usually initiate that connection. I'll send the student an email that this academic coach is going to be contacting them. And we try to obviously pair them with major like engineering or aviation, or some are praxis specialists. They, you know, for students who need to take the praxis exam, and they've you know, there's scholarship students in our program who've passed the praxis exam, and I work with the math and the math classes, but you know, we use the academic coaches, peer mentors to work with, like, say, the writing section, that type of thing. And so that's how we do it. Again, looking at the students' individual needs and then trying to meet those needs.
I might just add that if your program receives federal college work study funding allotment, we have paid for some of our academic coaches to be paid through federal work study funds. So that might be a way to look at, another way you can garner some outside money to help defray those costs.
I think too, I was personally a peer mentor when I was in college for a year. And it's actually super cool because the seniors now were the freshmen when I was a peer mentor. And so watching them graduate has been super rewarding. And something I personally did was we had the one-on-one meetings. And then when I felt the students needed maybe extra support, I would go to their different events, and we still do that with TRIO. So I remember I had 5 girls when I was a senior, and they were in a Christmas at Mary production. So I made a point to go and support them in there. And it just makes, I think they realize that you are there and you are a person and you don't just care about them getting a good grade. I went to a golf tournament. I don't understand golf. Brenda tried teaching me about it before I left and I got lost on the course. So I don't know anything, but showing the students that you do care and having the peer mentors go to a baseball game or football game so that they do want that personal relationship with them.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's important not just for the mentors too, but also for the advisors, right? Showing up for the students when they need it, but also when they don't. There's been a lot of talk in the chat about how much money is spent. To give you an idea, so NDSU, Scott said, spends about $6,000 a year on our mentors. Any given time, we have between 4 or 5 students who are peer mentors. And our program's 350 students now. Not all of them are using our mentors, right? We primarily try to get the students in their first 2 years to kind of get started and get off on the right track. So kind of maybe you can take that number and plan accordingly based on the size of your program, the size of your institution. Can Krista or Lacey, I know you all have talked about the mentor program that you have at Northern State. Can you talk a little bit about how engaged your mentors are within your program?
Since Lacey's picture's off, I'll talk a little bit. But just I think somebody, I'm not sure if it was Caitlin that talked about the CRLA. So our students are CRLA certified peer mentor level 2, so that we ask that they have about 75 hours of contact with our students. But what's really interesting is our program is in a living learning community. So we consider our program residential peer mentors. So part of the cost is actually supported by our residents' life. So we built that into the grant. We are fortunate enough to have that buy-in so that our students are able to live on campus. So their housing is waived if they are a peer mentor in our program, and then they get a small stipend each month that they complete the activities of connecting with their students, helping plan different workshops. So they usually attend 2 workshops, 1 social event a month, and then our community service event, as well as just meeting up with them weekly. And so we ask that they email them weekly. They have little office hours within their residence hall that students can catch them outside in the lobby to ask different questions or get help with anything that they need. But that their presence is really within that living learning community within one floor of a residence hall, which is really cool. And we've really branded it to be our TRIO SSS living learning community. So we're pretty fortunate to have some of those things that our campus really does support living learning communities. They support peer mentors, which allows us to be a little bit more connected with our students. I know when we talked a little bit about engagement, I think the thing that we've been fortunate enough is having our peer mentors engage in person with our students, because it seems like that's really the only connection they're getting, besides if they decide to go to class if they would like to. A lot of students are doing the HyFlex modality. So our peer mentors have been really on the pulse of our students this year and in helping keep them engaged and understand what TRIO programs really do for them. And so that is really the big bulk of our program, is that living learning community and how they can engage with their freshman students primarily as they transition to college. I don't know if Lacey wants to add anything further.
I think you did a great job, Chris. I think, was your question, Mark, like how do we keep the mentors themselves engaged? Yeah.
So it was just like, can you talk a little bit about your program? Because I know it's a very engaging one where the mentors are really engaged with the students as well. So I think Krista nailed it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say the only thing I would add is that we typically have a large training before the semester kicks off, and we utilize paradigm shifts, and we have done so for the last couple of years. Well, they will come in and do some like train the trainer activities. So that's fun for our mentors to hear from someone else besides just us, but then we also bring in other professionals from across the campus. So disability services and career services. So they get all of that training. And then we also meet with them, with our mentors, once a week. And then they meet with one of the professional staff at least once a month. So they have that individual training as well. So that really helps our peer mentors themselves stay engaged and then motivate them and help them be accountable for reaching out to their mentees.
Awesome. Seems like Paradigm Shift has a lot of good stuff going on. Does anyone have anything else to add on peer mentoring before we hit recruitment? Okay, so recruitment is kind of up my alley. I have a background in admission. And actually last year, we at NDSU were kind of reevaluating how we were recruiting students because we have such a large program. We wanted to try to fill up earlier than we had been historically. So I actually utilized, and this is maybe a good kind of lesson to maximize what you get out of Aspire. I communicated to different staff members at like UND, at Northern. I talked to Allison at Wyoming. Talked to a couple schools in Minnesota who I know they're not in Aspire, but just to like learn more about what types of communications you were sending out for recruiting, how were you reaching students, when were your programs, when were they filling up? So I will paste my questions about recruitment in the chat. So starting out, when do you typically reach out to your prospective students? Do you wait until they are either at orientation or do you find them when they're on campus? What ways are you reaching out to students? Who are the partnerships that are critical for recruiting within your program? What types of communications are being sent out to prospective students? And how accessible is the information about your program or the application for your program, either online or on campus?
Well, I guess I can kind of share what we do at University of Mary. We have developed very good relationships with financial aid people and admissions people. So with financial aid, such as when we have early registration, we've already had 2 of them on campus, one in March, one in April. And so I contact financial aid to get a list of anybody who's completed a FAFSA. And they give me a list of students who either marked first gen or they give me, I can see what their incomes are, whether they would qualify or not in the low income. And so then I send out a, just kind of a hey letter, hope to see you at the next SOAR, please stop by our booth. You may be eligible, of course I don't put anything set in concrete that they are, but you may qualify for the TRIO program. And then of course put in one of our fun brochures and an application. And so we get some that way. And then when summer comes, then it's literally calling some of these who came and we do a phone call, because many of them will say, oh yeah, I'm going to do it, and then they don't. So it's following up with them. And then as far as admissions go, our relationship with the admissions office, every student that they have contact with, they have them fill out a higher ed survey. And that tells us too, if they're first gen or what their income limits are. And then we kind of can have a heads up on those students too. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. And it's just constantly having to collaborate, which I find a good thing. We collaborate a lot with the other offices on campus to kind of get a heads up and go that way. But recruiting is always a challenge, and it seems like you're really, come July, you know, we're really going back to those who expressed interest and just making those personal calls, and we get a lot that way. But typically I like to be fully funded if possible, numbers wise, by October is the goal. And especially in the summer, we want to know as many of them who will, because if they're freshmen, we want to get them in the trio section of first year experience. So
Yeah, that's a really good point, right? Trying to get them in early so that way you can kind of continue the services throughout.
right.
One question that kind of popped in my head after you mentioned those things is, when you are looking at the FAFSA, are you using like the expected family contribution to determine the income eligibility?
Well, that's what I get from financial aid, but then of course I look at but it gives me a number, and then I have to compare it to what, you know, the Department of or the federal
Sure.
regulations are, the federal requirements. So even though they're Pell eligible, as we know, it doesn't mean that they're going to qualify income wise. So it's, you know, going back and forth between the two charts, but at least I have the number of what they put as their taxable income. And so it gives me
Sure.
a starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that we started with last year was kind of using those same connections, right? Using the admission office to get the list of students who are first generation, using financial aid to get the students who are Pell eligible, or even like EFC 0, right? Because you know, if they're EFC of 0, they're going to be income eligible.
Right.
And we sent out physical letters, like snail mail letters, that was signed by Scott. We sent out like general emails, like an inquiry. We did things where we would try to visit like first year experience courses in different programs. And it was definitely more challenging this past year because we were using the HighFlex. So I would go to a class that's normally 80 or 90 students, and there would be 30 students there and 50 students online. Really hard to engage those students, right?
Yeah.
And then kind of just following up with those emails, especially if a student expressed interest, like you said, saying like, hey, like, thanks for meeting with me. Here's more information, or let me know if you need any more assistance. But I think especially with everything that's been going on and how the pandemic has affected our population of students, you want to feel more secure earlier on in the year, so that if you are losing students in the spring semester or something, you can kind of work around that than trying to fill up last minute.
Right.
How about some other programs? What do we do for recruitment?
Here at Lake Region, we are like you, Brenda. We do the early registration days. We go and do a presentation during that because they have presentations. So we work at admissions. They say, oh, you need to come in and tell about your services and who you are, and then we have them. We have our application in the admissions package. They already our application trio, Power Skills. It's already there, so we fill that out and we can go from there to see who's going to qualify and start reaching out to them. And we have those kinds of things happen not only right now, but they happen all through the summer. That we work with with admissions, financial aid. We also are part of new student orientation. We're a part of that whole process. So we're already, working with those students, identifying them, and also talking about Trio, Power Skills, the whole what we have to offer, and then we're able to get more students or find our students, or actually the students find us, and then we can make those connections, and from the very beginning, when they put names with faces, so we're not so what we try to do in the get-go is when we have those new students who are coming on campus with new student orientation, registration days, that kind of thing, that they already can see us. They can already identify who we are. So we're already making those connections and making those, making those connections with those students. And then, working with faculty and disability services, of course, finding out, okay, where's our disabled students, so we can also get them with us and here in TRIO and that kind of thing. So it's a lot of what you're all doing, and just making sure that you're keeping close with those student support service type departments across the campus, and just kind of working together to find those students, get them the services they need, and we working together.
Absolutely. Those partnerships are critical, like I mentioned, to having that successful program. And one other thing that we started last year, in the past, our program was presenting to parents at orientation and not to students. So I actually kind of weaseled my way into creating a student-facing presentation that was about the transition or adjustments to college that students face both academically and socially. And then at the end, tied in how TRIO programs, specifically SSS, is there to support students with some of the challenges or adjustments that we had. So I was able to provide all students this information, but then say like, hey, if you're first gen, low income, if you have a disability, like you can go to these other places, but you can also get everything you need with us. And I think we saw some applicants come from that. Last year we had online orientation. This year we had online orientation. So it's not necessarily ideal as it would be like face-to-face and meeting those students, but it's at least getting the information out in front of them, right? Because I think that may be one of the biggest challenges at our universities is increasing the awareness of our programs. We actually just had a student come up to our office who's about to graduate in 2 weeks. And she said, I never knew you guys existed. Well, that's one of the things that like getting out in front of them early would be good.
One of the things that we did that we're doing this year too at BH is we're working with our admissions office. We just got a Target X program. I don't know if everybody else has that, but we're now going to be sending out emails, and we changed it so our format is sending both to students and to parents as well. Kind of trying to catch. Sometimes students don't always know that they need help, but parents know that their child might need help, and so just trying to catch both audiences.
So we have about a little under 5 minutes left, and I wanted to wrap up with online programming. It's something that we already talked a little bit about when we did engaging students, but specifically with online programming, how did you pivot to online programming? In TRIO SSS at NDSU, we did a lot of our academic advising through Zoom or Microsoft Teams before we had the business Zoom account. And I'd say that it's like an 80-20 split between online advising and on-campus advising, but our tutoring program is kind of the opposite. Our tutoring program is like 70% on campus and about 30% online. So how does your program look in terms of operating virtually? Are you on campus? Are you off campus? Will you continue offering some of these online programs in the future? And how do you think that technology has maybe improved the way that you serve your students? And that's a lot of questions to answer in 3 minutes, so feel free to enter it in the chat as well.
Well, I'll jump in, Mark. I left it up to the academic coach tutors as to, which they would prefer, and some preferred face-to-face and some students preferred face-to-face, but I would say 2/3 preferred the online or Zoom method. But we've done some different things with technology, and I think we've served the students well. We've had a couple really outstanding tutors that we've used cameras, we've used the whiteboard, and some different methods. But one other thing that I forgot to mention earlier is We have a grant program, the U.S. Masters on campus, and as part of their master's seminar, we have a colleague and I have been able to have available to the U.S. Master's students that be one of the criteria for completing that seminar credit is that they tutor for us. And so that's been really, really fun too. Both a good experience for the U.S. Master's student and, you know, for our program because it's free tutoring. So.
Yeah, one thing that I think is really interesting is at NDSU, we upgraded, right? Every school got all of these funds to kind of upgrade their campus to make it accessible, whether it's through the CARES Act or whatever. Now that we have all of these cameras and we have all these microphones and we have everything, whiteboards and the plastic barriers and things like that, are we going to continue using them in the future, or are we just going to ditch them? I think that it makes it more accessible for our students, right? If a student, like for us, we're on the 3rd and 4th floor of a building that's not necessarily center or central to campus. Maybe now students can use their services without needing to walk all the way over to our building, right? So some of those things have kind of come to my mind.
We talked about that in our staff meeting as well, that a lot of really good things, innovative things have happened and that we're not going to just cast them aside. So, you know, we feel that way too, Mark.
Okay, and with that, it is 2:15 and I want to make sure everyone has a good break before the next session. So thank you all for joining us for the Program Share College Edition. If you have any other questions or anything, I will put my email in the chat. It's mark.counterman@ndsu.edu. You can always reach out to me. I'm willing to help out however I can, and I will see you in the next session.